In this episode, Teja McDaniel, founder of the McDaniel Group, shares insights on talent management, recruitment strategies, and the impact of AI in hiring. Discover how organizations can optimize their talent acquisition processes, avoid common pitfalls, and build a strong employer brand. Today on the Boost Numbers podcast, we welcome Teja McDaniel, founder of the McDaniel Group. And Teja's had a long history in the talent management space, which is an incredibly important space for all of us out there in the working world, obviously, and very relevant today as we look at some of the trends that are happening in organizations around a lot of technology changes. So I'm super excited that you made it here, Teja. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Bill. I really appreciate it.
Great. So to dive in, I saw in your background, you've done a lot of work in the talent management space, and I would love to open the floor to you and just understand your story, kind of what led you to where you are today, and then we'll slide right into what types of things are you doing for customers at the McDaniel Group.
No worries. So, like a lot of individuals who've gotten into recruitment, it was something that happened more by accident than intention. I actually have over 15 years of international business operations, talent acquisition, HR, people experience. I had my own recruitment agency in Australia and have worked for Big Four, Fortune 500, Accenture, Hewlett-Packard, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, LinkedIn, and GitHub, as well as everything from corporate to nonprofit. I think the big thing for me, what makes me a little bit different, is that I've often gone into organizations with a people focus, but it has really been my experience seeing different organizations where the house is on fire. It's either an organization that is looking to scale, but they've hit that 200 mark and things are starting to break down and their systems are not able to support the scaling, or they've existed for as long as like 100 years and they're nosediving because the systems that they had in place are no longer current and haven't been matured. So that's a bit like my background. I've been able to help organizations scale up to 400%. To grow from 100 million to 4 billion, cost savings, $21 million. And I've also impacted everything from attrition by 56%, and even in HR, employee relations cases by 75%. Many of the organizations that I've been with have become number one in their niche.
Those are some impressive numbers. So it leads me to, a bunch of questions, but what are some of the primary factors, when you say helping to scale the cost savings? What are some of the examples? You might sit back and if you don't really know the talent management space or never been in recruiting, think about it, well, we just need to hire because we're growing. And it's much more than that. As you're pointing out, there's just so much more than just filling seats because business is good. You can wind up with a mess down the road. So I'm just curious, what are some of the key factors that led you to that kind of success at these organizations?
Well, I think, again, coming to systems, because a lot of organizations believe, oh, we need to hire more people, we need to hire more people. But what is the strategy? What are the tactics behind it? Do you actually have a system in place that is going to be able to provide you with the best possible talent? So being able to initially understand, well, what is the need? What is the current pain? What are the goals? What's the vision? Really determines what kind of talent that you're looking for. And there's also some misconceptions as well, because everyone thinks, oh, we need to go fast, we need to go fast, we need to go fast. But the reality is that that could be a recipe for disaster. The military, for example, has a quote which is, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Because you need everything to work with every other part. It needs to be like a symphony, a beautifully constructed orchestra, because if you're just going fast, you're going to stumble, you're going to crash. And if you go slow, you're going to be irrelevant. So you really need to find the right combination. And when systems are in place and when that process is going smoothly, you're not making missteps. You're not doing anything gregarious in regard to wasted effort or wasted actions. And in that way, the precision really makes things go fast because that is the result of a perfectly working system.
There's so many steps, in the process when growing an organization. You've got to budget and finance for, you got to design the organization and thinking about where you're going or where you want to be. And then of course you got to hire the people. So there's so many mechanics that go in behind it, to your point, and the cost of not doing that well, turnover, all the, kind of main metrics, hiring someone that doesn't work, having to redo it, and then doing that at scale can be a problem. And I'm just curious, one of the concepts, there's so many ways to kind of find positions. If I was on the other end looking, and when we look at job descriptions, there's kind of this over credentialing problem that happened. At least I saw a bit in corporate America. They kind of this giant long list of things that we need or we can't hire someone. Is that something that you've seen, that you help these organizations with? It's not so much in just writing the job description, but it's here's our strategy, here's who we really need. We've done the work, as you said, to put a system in place. But the end result, a lot of times to fill those just winds up on a job board, maybe it's on a career site. Um, and it can be tough to get through these days, that kind of webbing of here's the 50 things we got to have, or this role can't be filled. I'm just curious your thoughts on that part of the process.
I think organizations can be too persnickety in regard to the requirements that they're looking for. And that there's a difference between what is a job description and what is a job ad. Because a job ad is really to entice talent while giving an overview as to what the role is, while a job description is really that bullet point breakdown as to what are the requirements and what does that person need to do. And I think that that's part of the exploratory part of the interview process. And I think that also organizations miss out on a few things. They believe that they need to have more people in interviews and they need to have more interview cycles in regard to how many interviews are touch points with candidates. And unfortunately, for really top talent, that actually weakens the potential employer because then it looks like, okay, you need all these chiefs in the kitchen, but it sounds or looks to me like you have a problem with decision making. And that's when organizations find that they're getting ghosted by potential candidates. The other thing is that right now, a lot of organizations have these ATS systems that are using AI. And AI, the expectation is that it's going to filter out the best possible candidates for your needs. The problem is this: AI is being implemented in such a way that if it is not implemented properly, if it is not designed properly, it is basically automating broken processes.
Mhm.
And if you don't fix like a proper screening system, then you're just making those bad decisions faster. And I would say AI has basically replaced the basis functions of recruiters, which are the individuals who just go through a checklist and also are looking for candidates that fit in the box. What winds up happening is you have candidates that are probably subpar from what your expectations are as a potential employer. And the other thing is that the box is going to eliminate a lot of individuals because if you are an impact player, if you are someone who is innovative, if you're someone who would be considered anywhere top talent, you don't fit in a box. And so therefore the AI in these ATS systems is they're eliminating the top talent. And so employers are looking at it and saying, wow, you know what? It doesn't look like the talent pool is that strong, not knowing that they've eliminated what they're really looking for. And at the same time, a lot of individuals are using AI to create resumes to show that they fit into a box. But then when they're showing up for interviews, they don't have the capability that they're saying what's on paper. So it becomes this real challenge from both sides. And unfortunately, no one is really monitoring the AI and ATS systems, and no one is really making AI accountable for what is the expectation.
It's a great insight. in my mind, it's the leadership appearance. If I'm a candidate, whether I'm a top executive or individual contributor, when you're kind of dragged through a process that is onerous, uh, you do begin to wonder about particularly executive levels. I've seen this firsthand with folks that I know, 9 interviews, and they know I can do this. This is a role I could do. I could actually help your organization. I've done this before. I don't need to be taken through. Understand, important positions, you need to talk to a lot of people. There may be just a familiarity, cultural matching process, but can also look like is who's really kind of running the show. And then at the individual contributor level, I think it's kind of the same thing. Um, you begin to wonder, can't someone step up at this organization, the manager, the hiring manager, and say, this person is actually really good. I don't care about, the scoring or the ATS. I mean, this is a person that can be coached. We can bring them in. They might not hit as many boxes as somebody else. And so you begin to wonder about, as you're applying for roles and you pull through these processes, like, can't someone who's on the other end, can't they see that I would be a good candidate? You might be up against 20 others that are just as good. That happens. And sometimes you're just filtered out because there are a lot of, quality candidates. But I think you've hit on a really key topic that can be a turnoff as a candidate to an organization. Like, well, is this the culture all the way through? Do, everything once I land this job, if I do, is everything done by committee and tons of process and move slowly? And you begin to wonder a bit um, how the organization's run. I think it's a great insight that you have. And I'm sure you coach, your clients on, don't fall into this trap. And mentioning the ATS, the other thought I had was, you've got to handle, I've talked to folks and they've, we posted a job and we had 100 uh, postings, resumes within 30 minutes. We had to shut it off. I've literally had that conversation with a customer I used to have. Um, so there's a need to manage just the way the world works today. But my favorite with ATS is that they really can't take a gap in employment. If you have a 3-month gap or left a role, you took a couple months off to find the other, you just wind up talking about that gap in employment. Forget about your 20 years of experience, your 5 years of experience, which I think is an artifact of some of these systems. So really incredible insights, particularly on the leadership side. So at the McDaniel Group, is this effectively what you've done now that you've formed that group? Is providing these types of services to clients to help them build out as they're growing their entire kind of end-to-end talent management system?
Yeah, I think that, the clients that I've had really saw the symptoms of what wasn't working, but couldn't exactly pinpoint what it was that needed to be fixed. And I think that there's a big difference between what I would call your typical recruiter and also someone who's really a talent acquisition artist. Because I think that right now, a lot of organizations have gotten rid of their talent acquisition teams. And what's left is basically people who are maintaining things. And those recruiters who are left behind are now, their bandwidth is limited because they're taking on all the other requisitions, which are the open head counts of other recruiters who've now been dismissed. And they're not only doing that, but they're really leaning into ATS to make a lot of decisions and basing it on the scoring, not realizing, well, there are certain things that are eliminating candidates. It could be your font. It could be the type of file that you're using. It could be something like the gap in your resume. It could be other things that the ATS/AI does not understand. And therefore, you're being eliminated without any kind of consideration whatsoever. But also, one of the things I talk about is that candidate experience, because a lot of organizations, they're looking to hire, but they're not really presenting, well, what is it for you that you're going to receive from us? Are we going to be not only paying you a salary and giving you benefits, or is it fractional work and you're going to have a great hourly rate? The projects are going to be exciting, but you're also going to be working with a dynamic team. And what are the other elements that are going to be enticing someone? And I've literally, just for, you know, experimentation, uh, took on a couple of interviews that were presented to me that were AI interviews. And the first one, I kind of went like, "Oh, that was interesting," and I don't know how I did, crashed and burned or whatever, um, because I just did it. But the next time I was offered an AI interview, I really went about it as to I want to analyze this. And for me, I've got a pretty thick skin, nothing really bothers me, but I can imagine that between the tonality of the AI interviewer, as well as the quick paced questioning, and while you're thinking of your answer, it is coming at you and say, "Do you need more time? Do you need more time?" That I can imagine some
Right.
individuals feeling like they're actually being interrogated, even though there's this niceness to it. And at the end of it, when it said, "Do you have any questions?" I asked 15 questions, of which it could only answer one. And here in California,
Wow.
you have to be able to say, "Well, what is the salary band? What is the range?"
Right.
Everything else from, is this a leadership role? Where exactly is the office? Do I have a team? What are the expectations of the role? If I'm in this role 90 days down the road, what does success look like? What's the vision of this organization 6 months down the road as to what they expect this role to do? So different things like that. But the other thing is that by doing an AI interview, not only did I not get to have my answers, from the questions that I asked, but also I don't get to meet the team. I don't get to see or talk with the people who I'm going to be working with or being supervised by. And in that way, I have no sense as to what the culture is of the organization. And what you're actually presenting me is a sense as to, yeah, you don't really appreciate people either. And particularly for a senior executive role, you couldn't take the time to have a conversation, even if it's with a recruiter at first. So, those are the things that I think when an organization understands the importance of human touch, they're going to succeed. And the organizations that lean too hard into AI to do everything, including the interaction with candidates, the face to face interactions, or having multiple interviews, or having multiple individuals in interviews and being really persnickety as to, does this person tick every single requirement without even looking at, well, do they have other things that actually might overcompensate for the one thing that they don't have, because attitude and willingness to learn are so important that those organizations will actually suffer because the kind of talent that they're going to be hiring will be subpar. They will be mediocre. They will be the individuals that take forever to make a decision and aren't willing to risk their neck at all to make a decision and would rather have the rest of the population make a decision for them. And if you're an organization that is looking to grow, push the envelope, and get somewhere, that is not the kind of leadership that you need within the organization.
I'm sitting here thinking about having an interview where I'm talking to an AI recruiter. And that would be, I would say it's expected, just given where we are to find yourself in that situation. But I'm kind of with your assessment of probably a bit of a turnoff. There is an emerging with all this automation kind of concept of people want to know who they're doing business with, and in this case, who you would work with. So make yourself available. You might be using a lot of automation for productivity, and I understand that aspect of it. I'm sure when you talk to the AI recruiter, the transcript goes in, it's analyzed by some system that, they said, hey, we can analyze their answers. We'll give you a summary. You can imagine how that system probably works in that case you shared. Um, but in the end, you had no touch with that company, and it's no different than dealing with customers. If it's all just automated, you can fall in a hole and just turn people off. And if a little bit of human touch could go a long way. Imagine in that case, had you spoken to the person you might have been working for in that role to get a sense of the culture, and they said, "Hey, process wise, we run you through this guy interview, but I wanted to talk to you first," might completely change how those tools are used. We're all using automation to do more with less, but don't just throw me in a room with Hal and expect me to enjoy the experience. That's a interesting trend. It'll be interesting to see where that one goes.
Well, I
Um,
think, Bill, one of the things is that, like I said, a talent acquisition artist. There's such an opportunity within the interaction of anyone with a candidate to truly be an ambassador of the organization. And that starts with the first person, who's usually the recruiter, having that touch, building that trust with a candidate, being able to provide information. And if a recruiter really isn't able to provide that information, that tells me that they haven't been properly trained, because they don't know what is the employee value proposition for a candidate. And at the same time, I think that when an organization understands that the greater majority of candidates they're going to say no to is not just a transactional situation, but it's really an opportunity to turn every single candidate that they say no to into a brand evangelist. Because I would rather have an organization, and this has really been my philosophy, that those individuals that we say no to still say, wow, I wish I'd gotten a job right now with that organization. Maybe I still can, because I'd love to work with those people and I'd love to be doing what they're doing. The work that they do is really resonating with me. So I look at it this way, that you could be a good organization that treats your employees well, but if you really want to be a great organization, you treat employees well long before there's an offer letter, because you treat every single candidate with respect, integrity, appreciation, and also transparency. And that's a philosophy that in organizations that I've been to that has turned them around in regard to their capability of hiring solid talent. Because if they have a terrible reputation out there, all you need is a couple of people to go to Glassdoor and write you up a new one, then that is going to impact in a negative way your possibility of doing recruitment. And every single hiring manager needs to know that their actions and their interactions with candidates isn't just going to affect the role that they're trying to fill, but it could be affecting the entire organization in terms of their capability to get the best possible hires that that organization needs.
I like that term, talent acquisition artist. Did you coin that one? It's a good one.
I've used it often. I've used it often. I mean,
Yeah.
look, I'm brutal when it comes to recruiters, because I think the greater majority of them have been poorly trained. And they come off like not the brightest lights on the Christmas tree, and they're super lazy. And for example, if you have a resume and you're looking for people in Los Angeles, but it says Northridge, Woodland Hills, Oxnard, Ontario, the recruiter's not going to bother to look up and say, how close is that actually to Los Angeles?
Mhm.
They're just going to focus
Yeah.
on the people that have Los Angeles on the resume. And I think a talent acquisition artist goes the extra mile to make sure that, okay, I am going to find the best possible candidates for this organization, not just the first ones, but the best ones.
Yeah. Yeah. My takeaway on all that is with all these tools, it's common conversation today with AI tools everywhere, whether it's in the products you offer or just for productivity on the back end. There's a human element to it. And as you said, checking kind of the work on AI in a prior discussion we've had. What's it doing? Like any piece of software. I have an engineering background going way back and was taught we can use these tools to calculate and design things, but you have to make sure the tool you need to analyze what the output was. You can't just go build a bridge or an airplane or pick a product based on what the software said. You've got to make sure it makes sense, test it, all that kind of stuff. And it's no different in this space. You put a brand new system in, you're excited, retrain the recruiting people, and you're not getting the results you want. As you pointed out, can be very damaging to the organization. It's very automated, but not very human focused, which is who you're after. You're trying to hire people.
And
I did.
I think AI is a fantastic tool. I think that when used properly, yes, it will speed things along. It will give you different perspectives. It will allow you to build and enhance things faster than what we've been capable of doing in the past. But again, we also need to understand, well, what are the limitations? And we don't want to have ambition sort of take us on a trip without really understanding, well, what's the reality?
Yeah, completely agree. Um, Wanted to shift just a bit. I had noticed that you actually have written a book, How to Get a Job. I love the title. There's no denying and no misunderstanding what the book is about. Is it something, new editions are coming out? You're making modifications, a living, breathing. book that you're still
So
working on?
so I wrote the book in 2021, and I thought, okay, do I call it motorcycle maintenance and job acquisition? And I thought, well, how to get a job would be an easier look up on Google.
Yep.
And the reality is that it probably needs a new edition, but I actually pivoted and created a school.com community called How to Get Your
Hmm,
Dream Job, which,
gotcha.
the threshold is actually free. Um, and there are other opportunities within it to get more one-on-one coaching. But again, the content has self-paced visual videos in it, but I also am posting up-to-date information in regard to what is changing and what is happening. Everything from how LinkedIn has changed their algorithms to how to hack the application process to how to really show up for interviews. And one of the biggest things is that it's such a challenge. There are individuals who've been out of work for over a year, possibly 2 years, people who've just come out of work and they don't even realize what an uphill battle it's going to be. And there's no playbook with it. And I think that what I've really tried to present and to share is an opportunity to get information that is real time and to really see, okay, this is what I need to do so I don't waste time and then have a self discovery as to, oh, I've been doing something that really wasn't going to procure any interviews or really move me forward in terms of getting my next job. Because my MO is always about helping people. And that was really what started the idea behind the book. Because I've seen a lot of misinformation given to candidates, and of course, you can go to like 100 different individuals and they will give you a very beautiful looking resume and it looks pretty much all the same in regard to the craftsmanship and so forth. But what they don't understand is it user friendly in terms of a resume reader being able to read it within 10 to 15 seconds and understand that you are not only relevant, but you're really good at what you do, and at the same time spoon feeds the reader the rest of the way through the resume because you want to keep that reader engaged. And most resumes, how they're written, are not that way. And a lot of people miss out on information. And one of the things, even when I've gone to accounting firms as well as to different clubs at universities that have accounting clubs, is talk about the fact that we all can speak different languages around the world, but everyone understands numbers. And how do you use numbers to really position yourself as to someone who is really good at your job? Because any job will either help a company make money and or save money. And those are things that people say, "Oh, let me tell you I'm really good at what I do." Well, no, want you to show me through the numbers what you've done in the past.
Yeah, completely agreed. So pivoting over to this community, what was the URL again? I know you said it, but where do I find this?
So if you go to school.com and you look up how to get a dream job.
Gotcha. School.com, how to get a dream job, which makes perfect sense. As you point out, now it's a much more dynamic,
Well, and I and I
content.
should I
The
should say
content can
I should
live and
say it
breathe.
again just because I don't say the title that
Oh,
often, but it's
yeah,
how to get your dream job, not just a dream job, but your dream
yeah.
job.
Got it. Got it. How to get your dream job at school.com, which, as I was just stating, makes perfect sense because then you can keep it alive and well, and it moves along with trends and the time. And outside of publishing a book, I can't imagine. I've had a few friends write books and I hear it is not an easy task. Maybe it was easy for you, but it's a lot of work, and it makes sense to have maybe more of that community approach and a little bit more living and breathing, like you said. Folks should
Yeah,
definitely check that out. That's cool.
yeah, and the school is actually spelled SKOOL, not like your typical
Okay,
school,
thank you.
and
Perfect. Yeah.
and it's focused on not only like early career individuals, because I've given over 50 speaking engagements in regard to corporations and universities in the area. I'm also a reoccurring speaker lecturer for Los Angeles Pierce College. But it's
Great.
really also for people who are transitioning, looking for their next job or looking for the next kind of job that they're looking for. So it really covers a lot of different things.
That's great. Worth checking out for sure. Having gone down these roads, even just personally, you can have AI tools look for jobs for you, and you're back to square one. What tools should you be using is kind of where my head is at, and to me, this makes a lot more sense because you're back to the same conversation. If you go out and try a service that, hey, AI is going to find the jobs and modify your resumes and stuff, you don't really know what it's doing if you're not monitoring. You're just on the other end of all the things you pointed out with automation and the holes and the gaps that are happening using AI tools to post jobs and interview people can be the same way and turning an agent loose to find jobs for you and write resumes for you. You don't know what you're getting yourself into unless you're really monitoring it. So there's just a good old fashioned how to get your dream job. You need to learn some skills and tools there as well. As we wrap up, I thought I'd just open the floor. If there's any other things, Tay, you would like to share or insights you would like to leave with viewers and listeners of the podcast based on your journey so far in the talent acquisition space.
Look, I would say that right now I'm helping organizations that are facing a crisis. Have they exactly hit the panic button yet or not? It's looming. And it could be an organization that is scaling, but they've gone from like the 0 to 1 million, and the founder's no longer the sales team and the recruiter and the mentor and the operator and going on gut feeling, but really that they've hit that place where maybe it's 10 million to 100 million, and they're at that 200 mark or getting to 500, and things have already started to crash and burn. So I would say, for me, there's a lot of individuals out there that are perfect for maintaining things and just making sure that everything's running smoothly with minor fires. I'm more the individual that, look, the kindling has already started. Things are starting to smoke, and either the fire is about to start or the house is burning down. And really being able to do a diagnostic and say, look, you're feeling this, but this is the reason why. And the difference between, for example, like McKinsey or Sloan is really, I not only identify it, but I also address it. And I've addressed it consistently where organizations, they've grown 400%. They've become number one in their sector, and they really started to thrive. And that's really what I enjoy. I enjoy helping people, and I also really enjoy the impact, that I've made. So I work hand in hand with founders, CEOs, COOs, and really am that right-hand partner for them to collaborate and really make a difference within their organization.
Well, thanks for that, Taya. That's a critical part to an organization's success. Hey, McDaniel with McDaniel Group, contact this gentleman if you need help. If you're hopefully not in crisis mode, call him before that's total crisis. You probably come out better on the end. And then, of course, school.com, how to find your dream job to help with the job search. And of course, it sounds like you're speaking and regularly out there. So get some advice from Teja McDaniel to help you on this journey because it is not easy, building out teams. It's not easy finding jobs. So we all need a little bit of help. Teja, thanks so much for joining my podcast today. Really insightful on the world of growing a company, finding talent. How do I get into an organization? I really appreciate your insight today.
No worries, Bill, and thanks so much for having me. Really enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks again.